Claire had always believed in love. She believed in fairy tales, in kindness, and in the idea that if you gave your heart fully, it would come back to you even fuller. She grew up in a small town where people waved at each other from porches, and kids rode their bikes till the streetlights came on. Claire was the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, who brought soup to sick neighbors, and who listened when others spoke. She was warm, gentle, and selfless to a fault. When she met Ryan at 25, she thought her story had finally started. Ryan was handsome and confident. He worked in sales and always had the right words. He made her laugh, brought her flowers, for no reason, and told her she was beautiful, even on days she didn't feel like it. He wasn't perfect, but he made her feel seen, and that mattered. They married after 2 years of dating. The wedding was small but joyful. Claire wore her mother's lace veil and danced barefoot in the grass under fairy lights. It felt like a dream she never wanted to wake up from. At first things were good. They bought a modest house, adopted a golden retriever named Benny, and filled their home with laughter and lazy Sunday mornings. Claire cooked dinner every night, decorated for every holiday, and made sure their life felt like a home. But over time, things started to change. Ryan began working longer hours. He came home tired, distracted, and moody. When Claire asked him how his day was, he often brushed her off. He no longer told her she was beautiful. Slowly, he stopped hugging her without reason or reaching for her hand. Claire blamed stress, maybe the pressure of bills or adult life. She believed it would pass. She tried harder, cooked his favorite meals, surprised him with little notes in his briefcase, wore dresses she knew he once liked. But nothing worked. And then came the comments. At first, they were quiet, almost like jokes. Maybe lay off. "The brownies, babe," he said one night after dinner. Claire laughed awkwardly. "You've gotten a little soft," he added another evening while poking her stomach. It stung, but she told herself not to be sensitive. Maybe he was worried about her health. But the jokes became more frequent, sharper. When she wore a new dress to a friend's party, he frowned. "You sure that fits?" he asked. Her cheeks burned with shame, but she stayed silent. Claire had gained some weight over the years. Life had gotten busy, and she had spent so much time taking care of others, Ryan, her parents, her job, that she had forgotten herself. She didn't have time for gyms or fancy diets. She thought love meant being accepted even when you changed. But for Ryan, it seemed, change was unacceptable. The distance between them grew. Ryan began spending more nights out, claiming work, dinners, drinks with colleagues, gym sessions. He started hiding his phone and turning it face down on the table. Claire knew something was wrong, but every time she asked, he snapped. "You're being paranoid," he'd say, or, "Stop nagging me." One evening, Claire found herself standing in front of the mirror, trying on old clothes, hoping something might still make her feel beautiful. But all she saw was a woman with tired eyes and a body she no longer recognized. She sat on the bed and cried quietly, so Ryan wouldn't hear. The breaking point came 6 years into their marriage. They were invited to a reunion party hosted by Ryan's old college friend. Claire, nervous but hopeful, wore a dress she had bought especially for the evening. She had done her hair, applied makeup, and tried to remind herself that she was still lovable. At the party, Ryan barely introduced her to anyone. He spent most of the time talking to a tall, slim woman in a red dress who laughed a little too loudly at everything he said. Claire stood in a corner pretending to check her phone, her heart shrinking with every minute. On the drive home there was silence. Then Ryan sighed heavily and muttered, "I can't do this anymore." Claire turned her head, confused. "What do you mean?" He stared at the road. "This, us, you. I don't feel attracted to you anymore. You've let yourself go." The words hit her like a slap. She stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say he didn't mean it. But he didn't. "You used to care about how you looked." "You used to try," he said. Now it's just sweatpants and frozen pizza. Claire felt her chest tighten. I've been trying. I've been holding this home together. Ryan scoffed. I need more than a warm meal and a house that smells like cinnamon. The silence after that was louder than any scream. A week later, Ryan packed his things. He didn't cry. He didn't even hug her goodbye. He left a note that simply said, I hope you find yourself again. And with that, he was gone. Claire sat on the kitchen floor for hours that day, hugging Benny and staring at the door. The man she had built her life around had walked away, not because she had been cruel or careless, but because she no longer looked like the girl he had married. She felt discarded, like something old and broken. In the following days, she barely moved. The house was too quiet, every corner filled with memories. She deleted all the pictures of them from her phone, but the pain didn't go away. It stayed, heavy like a stone on her chest. She stopped answering calls. She didn't want to explain what happened. She couldn't handle the pity in people's voices. Food lost its taste. Music felt like noise. Nights were the hardest. Lying, in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replayed every moment, every laugh, every kiss, every cruel word. She wondered if she had done something wrong, if she should have tried harder. She hated her body, hated her reflection, hated that she still loved a man who didn't love her back. Her mother came over often, bringing meals and trying to cheer her up. You're stronger than this, she'd say gently. But Claire didn't feel strong. She felt invisible. Then, one rainy afternoon, something strange happened. Claire was scrolling through her phone, aimlessly clicking through social media when she landed on a video. A woman was talking about how her husband had left her because of her weight. The woman looked nothing like Claire. Taller, different, hair. But her words cut through the fog in Claire's mind. He told me I was no longer the woman he married, the woman said. But maybe I never was. Maybe now I'm finally becoming her. Claire watched the video 3 times. For the first time in weeks, she sat up straighter. That night, she took out a notebook and wrote herself a letter. It said, I don't know who I am anymore, but I want to find out. Not for anyone else, not for him, for me, because I deserve more than this. She didn't sleep much that night, but when the sun rose, something had shifted. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, sitting on her bed with tear-stained cheeks and a handwritten promise to herself, was the beginning of everything. The pain hadn't disappeared. The loneliness hadn't vanished. But a tiny flickering light had appeared inside her, and she wasn't going to let it die. The road ahead would be long and full of struggle. There would be days when she'd want to give up, when the weight of it all would make her knees buckle. But something inside her had cracked open, and through that crack, a new version of herself was waiting to rise. Not for revenge, not for approval, but for freedom. After Ryan left, Claire's world felt like it was falling apart. The house was quiet and empty, except for Benny, the golden retriever, who seemed to understand something was wrong. Claire barely left her bedroom. Days passed, but to her, time had stopped. She didn't want to eat. She didn't want to talk, and she certainly didn't want to face the world. Every corner of the house reminded her of Ryan, his favorite chair, his coffee mug still in the sink, the way the sheets smelled like him. At first, Claire thought the pain would fade with time. Maybe a week, maybe a month. But instead, it only grew heavier. She felt a strange mixture of sadness, anger, and deep loneliness. Nights were the worst. She would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the last time Ryan spoke to her, about the words he said, words that cut deeper than any knife. She kept replaying every moment, every conversation, wondering where everything went wrong. Sometimes Claire would try to get out of bed, but her body felt too heavy. It wasn't just her weight. It was the weight of heartbreak, disappointment, and self-doubt pressing down on her. She felt trapped inside herself, unable to move forward or back. She avoided mirrors, afraid to see the reflection of a woman who had been called fat and unattractive by the man she loved. The cruel words haunted her, making her shrink inside. Her friends called sometimes, but Claire often ignored the calls or made excuses. She didn't want pity or advice. She just wanted to disappear. Even when people came to visit, she hid behind curtains or locked herself in her room. She thought about how Ryan must be feeling free, moving on with his life, while she was stuck in this darkness. But there were moments when Claire's sadness turned to anger. She was angry at Ryan for hurting her, for leaving instead of talking. She was angry at herself for believing she wasn't good enough. And she was angry at the world for making her feel invisible. Sometimes tears would pour out without warning, and she would sob quietly, clutching Benny close, wishing things could be different. One day her mother came over, as she often did. She brought homemade soup and sat quietly beside Claire, not pushing or asking questions. Instead, she told Claire stories about her own struggles, how life was full of ups and downs, and how sometimes the darkest moments led to the brightest. New beginnings. Her words didn't fix Claire's pain, but they planted a small seed of hope. Claire knew she couldn't stay like this forever, but she didn't know how to start healing. The thought of facing the world again terrified her. She worried people would judge her, pity her, or worse, forget her. She felt like a shadow of the woman she used to be, quiet, broken, and lost. One afternoon, out of boredom and restlessness, Claire picked up her phone. She scrolled through social media with no real purpose until she stumbled upon a video that caught her attention. A woman, not much older than Claire, spoke with a calm strength. She shared her own story of heartbreak, how her husband had left her for similar reasons, how she had felt worthless, and how she had started to rebuild her life piece by piece. The woman's story was honest and raw. She talked about the days she didn't want to get out of bed, the nights she cried herself to sleep, and the small victories that gave her hope. But most importantly, she spoke about reclaiming her power and learning to love herself again. Claire watched the video over and over. For the first time in weeks, she felt something stir inside her, a small flicker of hope. That night, Claire took out an old notebook she had kept since college. She opened to a blank page and began to write. At first, the words came slowly, hesitant like a whispered secret. She wrote about the pain, the loneliness, and the fear. But then she wrote about what she wanted. Not to be thin, not to win Ryan back, but to find herself again. She made a promise to herself, a simple but powerful promise. To try, to fight, and to believe she was worth it. The next morning, Claire woke up feeling different. The heaviness was still there, but the tiny spark inside her had grown. She decided to take a small step. She got dressed, put on her shoes, and took Benny for a walk around the block. The fresh air felt strange but good. She noticed the sunlight on the leaves, the sound of children playing, and the smell of freshly baked bread from a nearby bakery. It was the first time in a long time that the world seemed alive. Walking became a small daily habit. Each day, Claire added a little more distance. 2 blocks, 3 blocks, until she felt stronger. Sometimes she cried on those walks, letting the tears fall freely. Sometimes she smiled at strangers or greeted a neighbor. Slowly, she began to reconnect with the world outside her pain. Claire also started to read more, books about healing, self-love, and women who had overcome tough times. She joined an online group of women who shared their stories and supported each other. It was comforting to know she wasn't alone. The women encouraged Claire to speak kindly to herself and to celebrate every small victory. Therapy was another important step. At first, Claire was nervous to talk about her feelings with a stranger, but her therapist was patient, gentle, and understanding. Together, they worked through Claire's sadness and anger. The therapist helped her see that Ryan's words were not a reflection of her worth, but of his own insecurities and weaknesses. Claire learned to forgive herself and, slowly, to forgive Ryan too. Healing wasn't easy or fast. Some days were, full of hope, and others were full of despair. Sometimes, Claire felt like she was making progress, and then she would fall back into old patterns of doubt. But she kept going. She learned that healing wasn't a straight path but a winding road, with ups and downs. As the months passed, Claire noticed changes in herself that had nothing to do with her weight or appearance. She felt stronger inside. She began to laugh again, even if softly. She started to care about her own dreams and interests, not just about what others wanted. She remembered the things she loved: painting, hiking, reading, and made time for them. One day, Claire looked in the mirror and didn't feel shame. She saw a woman who had been through pain but was still standing. She saw someone worthy of love, not because of how she looked, but because of who she was. It was a small moment, but it felt huge. Claire's journey was far from over, but that dark tunnel she had been trapped in was starting to brighten. She wasn't the same woman Ryan had left behind. She was someone new, someone brave enough to face the world again, someone ready to write her own story. Claire's life was changing, but not in the way she had imagined before. After months of sadness and pain, she began to discover something new inside herself, a strength she hadn't known was there. It started with small steps, little changes that seemed unimportant, but slowly built into something much bigger. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was beginning to live again. The first thing Claire did was keep walking. At first it was just a block or two around her quiet neighborhood, with Benny by her side. The fresh air felt cool on her skin, and the sound of birds singing made her heart feel lighter. These walks were hard. Her body was tired, and some days her mind was full of dark thoughts. But each step helped her feel a little more connected to the world outside her grief. After a few weeks, Claire found a local fitness class designed for beginners. She hesitated before signing up, afraid of what others might think and unsure if she could keep up. On the first day, she was nervous. The room was filled with energetic people who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Claire felt out of place, clumsy and slow. But the instructor was kind and patient, encouraging her to listen to her body and take breaks when needed. Claire kept going back. Each class was a challenge, but also a chance to prove something to herself. She began to notice small changes. Her legs felt stronger, her breathing easier, and most importantly, she felt proud, not because of how she looked, but because she was doing something just for her. At the same time, Claire started seeing a therapist regularly. The sessions were sometimes difficult. She had to face painful memories and feelings she had buried deep inside. But her therapist helped her understand that healing was not about forgetting the past, but about learning to live with it. Claire talked about the hurt Ryan had caused, but she also began to talk about her own dreams and hopes, things she had ignored for years. One day, during a session, Claire realized she had been living her life to please others. She had put Ryan's needs first, forgotten her own happiness, and hidden behind a mask of quiet obedience. The therapist helped her see that true love started with loving herself. That idea felt strange but powerful. As Claire worked on her mind and body, she also focused on her everyday habits. She started cooking healthy meals, experimenting with fresh vegetables and new recipes. Cooking became a way to care for herself, something joyful rather than a chore. She began to enjoy the process of making food that made her feel good inside and out. Claire also discovered the power of community. Through the online support group she had joined, she connected with women who had faced similar struggles. They shared their stories, cheered each other on, and gave advice without judgment. For the first time in a long while, Claire felt seen and understood. With encouragement from her new friends and therapist, Claire decided to take a bold step. She enrolled in a course to become a certified fitness coach. It was exciting and scary. She wasn't sure if she was smart enough or strong enough, but she was determined to try. The idea of helping others who felt lost and broken like she had made her feel hopeful. Studying was hard. There were textbooks, exams, and practical lessons. Sometimes Claire felt overwhelmed, but she kept reminding herself of her promise to keep going, no matter what. Her classmates were supportive, and she made friends who believed in her. Over the months, Claire's body changed too. She lost weight, but more importantly, she gained muscle and energy. Her skin glowed, her posture straightened, and her smile became brighter. But the biggest change was inside. She felt confident, alive, and proud of what she was achieving. Claire's mornings became full of purpose. She woke up early, did yoga or light exercise, and planned her day with goals and self-care. She journaled her thoughts and feelings, celebrating small wins and learning from setbacks. She listened to music that inspired her and read books about strong women and personal growth. Her relationship with Benny grew stronger too. They went on long hikes, played fetch in the park, and cuddled on the couch. Benny's joyful energy reminded Claire to find happiness in simple moments. At work, Claire found new joy. She had started a part-time job at a wellness center helping people choose exercise routines and healthy eating plans. Her clients loved her kindness and honesty. Claire realized she had a gift for motivating others, not by judging or pushing, but by understanding and encouraging. One afternoon, Claire stood in front of a mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. It wasn't just the physical changes, but the way she carried herself. Strong, calm, and full of life. She remembered the woman she used to be. Quiet, uncertain, and lost in sadness. Now she was someone who had fought hard to find herself. Her family and friends noticed too. They saw the glow in her eyes and the energy in her steps. They told her how proud they were. Claire smiled but knew that the true journey was still ahead. Sometimes Ryan's memory would flash in her mind. She wondered if he thought about her or regretted what he had done. But she no longer felt anger or pain when she thought of him. Instead, she felt peace. She had freed herself from the chains of the past. Claire began to dream again about her future, her goals, and the kind of life she wanted. She imagined helping women who felt lost and unloved, just like she once did. She wanted to create a community where people could find strength and hope. The journey wasn't perfect. Claire had days when she stumbled, felt tired, or doubted herself. But each time, she remembered her promise. She was building a new life. One brick at a time, one step after another. One evening, after a long day of studying and coaching, Claire sat on her balcony watching the sun set. The sky was painted with pinks and oranges, and the air smelled like fresh rain. She thought about how far she had come from that dark place of heartbreak. She realized that she wasn't defined by the pain Ryan caused or by the weight she once carried. She was defined by her courage to change, to fight, and to love herself. That night, Claire dreamed of the future. A future where she stood tall, helping others rise, sharing her story without shame, and living fully on her own terms. Claire had come so far. She was no longer the woman who had hidden away in her dark room, crushed by heartbreak and cruel words. Instead, she was blossoming into someone stronger, more confident, and full of new dreams. But even as she found herself, life had its own way of testing her. One day, Claire received an unexpected message. It was from Ryan. Her heart skipped a beat. After all the pain he caused, after all the nights she cried, why was he reaching out now? She hesitated, unsure if she should respond. Her friends told her to ignore it, to protect herself from more hurt. But deep down, Claire knew she had to face this moment. Not for Ryan, but for herself. She opened the message. Ryan was apologizing. He said he was sorry for the cruel things he had said, for leaving her in such a hurtful way. He admitted he had been wrong to judge her by her weight and appearance. He said he wished he could take it all back. Claire read the words carefully. Part of her wanted to scream and throw the phone across the room, but another part of her felt calm. She realized that Ryan's apology didn't have power over her anymore. She had healed too much, grown too strong. Still, Claire decided to respond. Not to ask for anything, but to say she had forgiven him. Forgiveness was not about forgetting or going back. It was about freeing herself from anger and pain. Writing those words was difficult, but freeing. She told Ryan she hoped he could find his own peace, and that she was moving forward with her life. After sending the message, Claire felt a weight lift off her shoulders. It was like closing a painful chapter and opening a new one filled with hope and possibilities. Life didn't become perfect after that. Claire still faced challenges, like anyone else, but she handled them with a new strength. At work, she took on more responsibilities and began to inspire others with her story of resilience. People admired her honesty and courage. She also continued her fitness coaching journey. Claire loved helping women discover their own power and beauty. She held workshops about self-love and healthy living, encouraging others to embrace their true selves. Her classes were filled with laughter, tears, and breakthroughs. Claire saw in these women the same pain she had felt, and it made her mission even stronger. Claire's social circle grew too. She made new friends who lifted her up, and she repaired old friendships that had faded during her darkest days. These people supported her, celebrated her wins, and walked with her through tough times. One of the most surprising changes was in Claire's relationship with herself. She learned to be kind and patient with the woman in the mirror. She no longer saw flaws but strength and beauty. Sometimes she would stand in front of the mirror, smile, and say, "You are enough." Her self-love extended beyond appearance. Claire cared for her mind and soul. She meditated, journaled, and read inspiring books. She explored creative hobbies like painting and writing. These activities nourished her spirit and helped her express emotions she once buried. Claire's health improved as well. She no longer exercised to lose weight, but to feel strong and alive. She ate foods that made her feel good and enjoyed them without guilt. Her body became a temple, a source of joy and energy. Romance was something Claire had avoided since Ryan left. She was afraid of opening her heart again, of being hurt. But as she grew, she realized love didn't have to mean pain. It could be gentle, supportive, and freeing. Slowly, Claire began to date again. She was careful and thoughtful, choosing people who respected and cherished her. She learned to set boundaries and to say no when something didn't feel right. Her new relationships were built on honesty and mutual respect. One evening at a small cafe, Claire met Mark. He was kind, funny, and genuine. They talked for hours about their dreams, fears, and passions. Mark didn't care about Claire's past or her appearance. He saw her heart and soul. Their connection was real and comforting. As their relationship grew, Claire felt safe to be herself completely. She laughed more, dreamed bigger, and loved deeper. Mark encouraged her to keep chasing her goals and celebrated every step she took. Claire also gave back to her community. She volunteered at local shelters and organized events to raise awareness about body positivity and mental health. She wanted to use her story to inspire others and create a world where no one felt ashamed of who they were. Throughout all these changes, Claire never forgot where she came from. The pain of being rejected and called fat was still part of her story, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it became a source of strength and empathy. One day, Claire was invited to speak at a women's conference. Standing in front of a large audience, she shared her journey, from heartbreak and self-doubt to healing and empowerment. Her voice was steady and confident, filled with passion and hope. The crowd listened intently, many wiping tears from their eyes. Claire's story touched their hearts and reminded them that no matter how dark life may seem, there is always light waiting to be found. After the speech, women came up to Claire, thanking her for her courage and honesty. Some shared their own stories, others asked for advice. Claire realized that her pain had transformed into purpose. Her life had come full circle. From the depths of despair, she had risen like a phoenix, stronger and wiser. Claire was no longer defined by the cruel words of a man who left her. She was defined by her courage to rebuild, to love herself, and to help others do the same. As she walked out of the conference hall, Claire felt a deep sense of peace. The journey was far from over, but she knew she was ready for whatever came next. With every step forward, she was creating a life filled with love, strength, and endless possibilities. And this time, she was walking on her own terms, proud, powerful, and free. Claire's life had changed in so many ways, and as she stood at this new point in her journey, she felt ready to face the world like never before. The woman who was once broken and full of pain was now someone who carried herself with strength and hope. This part of her story is about how Claire stepped fully into her new life, finding happiness not by depending on others, but by trusting herself completely. After speaking at the women's conference, Claire became well known in her community as a symbol of hope and resilience. She received messages and letters from women all over the country who had been touched by her story. Many shared their own struggles with self-esteem, heartbreak, and health, and they thanked Claire for giving them courage to keep fighting. This made Claire realize that her story was bigger than her own life. It was helping others heal too. Because of this, Claire decided to write a book. It was not an easy task. Writing about her life, about the hardest moments, meant opening old wounds, but she knew that by sharing her full truth, she could reach even more people. She spent months writing and rewriting, pouring her heart onto the pages. The book became a guide to overcoming pain, embracing self-love, and finding one's inner power. Claire's honesty and warmth shone through every chapter. She included stories of her struggles with weight, the heartbreak from Ryan's rejection, her journey through depression and healing, and the joy she found in rediscovering herself. She also shared practical advice on mental health, fitness, and self-care. The book was a message of hope for anyone feeling lost or alone. When the book was published, it quickly became popular. People praised Claire's courage and the way she spoke directly to their pain. She was invited to talk shows, podcasts, and community events. Even though the attention was new and sometimes overwhelming, Claire stayed grounded by remembering why she started: to help others. Despite her growing public life, Claire made sure to keep balance. She spent time with Mark, who supported her dreams and loved her without judgment. Their relationship deepened, built on respect, honesty, and laughter. Claire found that love could be a source of strength rather than pain. She also kept taking care of herself in ways that felt good to her, exercising not to lose weight, but because it made her feel alive, cooking nourishing meals, spending time with Benny, and enjoying quiet moments of reflection. Claire had learned that happiness wasn't a destination, but a way of living each day with kindness to herself. One important lesson Claire shared with others was about the power of forgiveness, not just for those who hurt us, but for ourselves. She explained how forgiving Ryan, not for his sake but for her own, had freed her from anger that held her back. This forgiveness was a gift she gave herself, allowing her to move forward fully. Claire also became a mentor to women starting their own healing journeys. She created workshops and support groups where women could come together to share their stories, find encouragement, and build friendships. These groups became a safe space where women learned to embrace their worth and beauty beyond appearance. Through her work and personal life, Claire's confidence grew. She traveled to new places, meeting inspiring people and learning about different cultures and ways of living. These experiences broadened her view of the world and deepened her appreciation for life's simple joys. One day, Claire received an invitation to speak at an international women's conference. Standing on a stage filled with thousands of women from all over the globe, she felt proud and humble. She spoke about resilience, self-love, and the strength found in vulnerability. Her words echoed through the hall, touching hearts and inspiring change. After the speech, a young woman approached Claire with tears in her eyes. She said Claire's story gave her hope to leave an abusive relationship and start fresh. In that moment, Claire knew her journey had purpose beyond what she had imagined. She wasn't just living her life, she was helping others find theirs. Claire's relationship with Mark also grew deeper. They talked about the future, about building a life together filled with love, respect, and shared dreams. Claire no longer feared vulnerability. She knew that love was about partnership and growth, not losing herself. There were still challenges. Life was not perfect, and Claire faced moments of doubt or fear like anyone else. But she had learned to face these feelings with courage, using the tools and strength she had developed. She knew it was okay to ask for help and to take time to rest and heal when needed. Claire's family, once worried and unsure, became proud of the woman she had become. They saw her light and strength and supported her journey wholeheartedly. She rebuilt relationships with her parents and siblings, creating bonds based on honesty and love. At home, Claire created a space that reflected her new life, filled with warmth, light, and beauty. She decorated with colors that made her happy, filled the rooms with plants and art, and made a cozy spot for writing and reflection. This home was her sanctuary, a place where she could be fully herself. Claire's story is one of transformation, but it is also a reminder that we all have the power to change our lives. No matter how hard the past, no matter how deep the pain, there is always a path forward. Claire's journey shows that strength comes from within, and the greatest love we can find is the love we give ourselves. As she looked back on her life, Claire felt grateful, not just for the good times, but for the struggles that shaped her. They taught her to be compassionate, brave, and hopeful. She knew her journey would continue, but now she walked with confidence, ready for whatever came next. Her story is not just her own. It belongs to every person who has ever felt broken and has found the courage to heal. It is a story of hope, courage, and the unbreakable human spirit. And as Claire stepped forward into her future, she carried one simple truth in her heart. She was enough, just as she was.